Good afternoon, high noon, America, or good morning if you're watching from the West Coast. There's a beautiful shot of the White House. I'm Robert McNeely. We're here at RSBN Live covering the latest news from the Trump White House. And what a week it has been to celebrate 100 days. Incredible media blitzes from Warren, Michigan to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to the White House, where President Trump signing an executive order on religious liberty, granting this commission of all-stars, I mean true superstars, that recognize God has to be at the center of this government because he worked through our founders 250 years ago, and he is working through Donald John Trump, the 45th and 47th President of the United States. TGIF, welcome back to RSBN. We hope you've enjoyed all of this incredible coverage this week with my dear colleague, Mr. Matthew Alvarez, going to the White House last week to get those extraordinary interviews with senior staff, yours truly on the road in the Wolverine State, and right here in our home of Alabama. We had to go to that rival campus of ours, but that was okay. We sometimes can break bread with the enemy. I'm just kidding. We're all on the same page when it comes to the greatness of this country. And thank you to our sponsors, who without them, we could not give you this access to President Trump and the agenda that is making America great again. Before you tune out today for Friday fun, whether it be locally or if you're traveling somewhere to enjoy time with friends and family, we have to think about China. Why are they dumping U.S. bonds? Why are they grabbing prime American farmland and rolling out new digital currency? Regardless of the great governance of President Trump and taking on Xi Jinping and the Communist Party of China, the doom talk exists. And the fact is the Chinese are trying to put an economic Pearl Harbor on the United States. You don't want to devastate your 401k or your IRA or your properties or your assets or the drones that they had flying over with their so-called weather spy balloons back during the Autopen Biden administration. So Colonial Metals Group is your go-to when it comes to all of this. Scan the QR code now or go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. And when you call the trustworthy experts at Colonial Metals Group, you can do that at 800-234-0089. You'll reach out to a friend of mine, Paul Stone, the CEO of this wonderful organization, and his team who will take care of you with great service. Again, visit freegoldguide.com/RSBN. We know that gold has gone up over 7,000% since 1971 when the Nixon administration went off of the gold standard, a very bad and poor decision. Regardless, gold and silver stand the test of time, and they stand the test of governments, empires, and even leaders that may come and go. But gold and silver, tangible metals for you and your family. If you call today, you can even receive $7,500 worth of free silver. So what a deal there. Shield those savings today. Scan that QR code now. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Thank you to Paul Stone and Colonial Metals Group for sponsoring us at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Now, imagine you have your finances all lined up, but you need a specific medication and being told that you cannot have it, not because it's out of stock, but because Big Pharma does not want you to have that. It's really sad that someone would decide to take that away from you, and it does happen again and again in our dear nation. When others make it complicated, All Family Pharmacy does what's right by you, the American people. Just the meds you want, just the meds you need. They have ivermectin, they have methylene blue, they have many others that are life-saving that you might not be able to pick up over the counter, say at a Walgreens or a CVS, or you have to jump through loops and hoops to get there. These are the kind of meds a local pharmacy may not have. And because being unprepared is not an option anymore, this is your go-to, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. There's code RSBN10, that's RSBN10, right there for you for 10% off. Think about this, whether a spouse has high blood pressure or your kid spikes a fever in the middle of the night on a Sunday, and everything's closed, All Family Pharmacy is there for you. They take care of it. You order online. Their doctors handle it immediately. It's shipped right to your doorstep. No insurance, no hassle, just peace of mind. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And again, code RSBN10. That's 10% off of your order. So do not delay. Get on that today and make sure your medicine cabinet is stocked in case of emergencies. And what a week it has been. The 100 days have come and gone. I can't wait for the next 100 days as this president continues to take on the fake news far left and also a group known as the globalists, the deep staters. You can call them the League of Shadows, whatever nickname you have for them. They clearly want to harm this MAGA agenda, but they have no way of getting their messaging out. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, and it just does not stick. So keep flinging those delicious plates of pasta. I might get upset with you because I enjoy pasta, but it's not going to stick against this MAGA agenda. Jobs are booming, according to the White House. For immediate release, more Americans are working for higher pay. According to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, this is the second month in a row where the jobs report has beat expectations. Wages are continuing to rise and labor force participation is increasing. This is exactly what we want. More Americans for higher wages, more winning on the way. And President Trump spoke on that last night in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We're winning, 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 and I love winning. And he had so much great commentary, so many great pointers for the graduates of the Crimson Tide 2025 commencement. The University of Alabama, a fine institution, and thank you to the leadership there, so willing, ready and able to invite President Trump, because it's a graduation that those hardworking students will soon not forget. President Donald Trump is revitalizing the American economy for these Gen Z graduates as the workforce grows and businesses onshore jobs. And today's jobs report proves just that. Here's what you need to know. In April, the U.S. added 177,000 jobs and smashing expectations for another month as the labor market responds to President Trump's economic vision. Private education and health services up 70,000. Transportation and warehousing, 29,000 jobs. Leisure and hospitality up 24,000. Professional and business services, 17,000. Financial activities, 14,000. Labor force participation grew as more Americans entered the workforce during President Trump's golden age. The American dream is truly back, as it was highlighted last night during his commencement speech. Americans' wages continue to rise, with real average hourly wages up by nearly 4% over the past year. Construction employment increased for the third straight month, adding 11,000 new jobs with no evidence of labor shortages in sight. The federal government cut jobs for the third straight month as President Trump implements his bold vision to right-size the bureaucracy, and that's thanks on part to Doge. Elon Musk was in that cabinet meeting, and President Trump told him, as they had the Gulf of America hats, two great new designs. You can actually mention in the comments which one might be your favorite design. Is it the traditional MAGA red or that navy blue with the red lettering? Well, Elon loved him so much he put two hats on as he was sitting right next to Secretary Kelly Loeffler, and President Trump said, "You know, buddy, I think you're the only one who could pull that off in here." And everyone had quite a chuckle, but he went right down to brass tacks that Elon Musk has done such an extraordinary job with this team, and he's welcome to stay at the White House as long as possible in order to get the job done. Now, Elon is on a special employment agreement with the government. He has 130 days from the inauguration. So we're getting roughly into now just slightly over 3 more weeks left on that short-term contract. We'll see how that gets changed or if that is going to be expanded down the road here, because we know Doge is really taking care of business. Now, economist Steve Moore is really renowned for his reports and knowing how to break down the numbers. Also someone from the prairie state of Illinois. This is an amazing report, according to Mr. Moore. The labor force participation rate rose, so this is really a strong number. We also have eShares CEO Joel Schuman, who is very encouraged, as he said, because we are already seeing many of the companies dependent upon foreign suppliers already reshoring some of their jobs. And former Toys R Us CEO Gerald Storch, we're going to be in great shape. So continue on this path. President Trump is doing something nearly impossible, realigning the global supply chain and reducing this $36 trillion of debt thanks to his living predecessors, especially that auto pen president, Joe Biden. It's frightening to think, as I was really thinking about this week, the fact that that guy had his hands on the nuclear football. Or was it Dr. Jill? Or was it Barack Hussein Obama? Or was it the vice president, the border czar, Kamala Harris? Scary to think about, especially as legendary coach Nick Saban shared that great story about the Diet Coke button in the Oval Office just yesterday during his commencement speech before introducing President Trump. One of his players went up to him and said, Mr. President, what is that for? Is that the nuclear football? And he said, why don't you touch it and try it out and see what happens? And he mustered up the courage finally, and a Diet Coke came in by one of the butlers for President Trump. So a great story there. Thanks to Coach Saban for sharing that memento with us yesterday. And thank you to angelpaste.com, one of our finest sponsors here at the network, the Miracle Cream. You saw me, I tried it on the show. It's my favorite Miracle Cream. It's infused with vitamin B qualities. It's non-GMO, no chemicals. So you know what you're putting on your skin is healthy for you. And it will get rid of your dry skin, your eczema, and make your skin just glowing at the end of the day. It sure happened for me. But they have other high quality products, whether that's the immunity boosting vitamin C orange option, a natural mosquito repellent. Also, they have a facial spray, a great way for the guys and gals to paint the town red this weekend. Experience the miracle today. Angelpaste.com. They are Christian based. They hire veterans. And they're out of Spring, Texas, in the Lone Star State, right off the Gulf of America. So that's a lot of fun to make sure that this is also perhaps in your medicine cabinet or in the pantry so that you don't have to deal with the dry skin or that eczema. My family has it. I inherited it. So we're very aware of how dry skin can make you feel icky throughout the day. So angelpaste.com, your go-to. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and Kalshi.com. That's KALSHI.com/RSBN. Trade and bet on the most important events in this great nation throughout the world, whether it is culture, politics, sports, all those topics, and whether it's the question of egg prices going down or remaining the same. All of those are addressed right there at Kalshi.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And we are live from the loveliest village in the Plains, Auburn, Alabama, on that tri-box there, the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and Capitol Hill. Oh, I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. It's always an exciting time to see this Republican legislative agenda matching what the president is looking to accomplish. So stick with it, House Republicans. Stay strong, because President Trump said in Warren, Michigan, if you don't get it done, you'll get primaried. We're not afraid to go after Republicans, not afraid to go after Democrats. And just on a personal note, and in many cases, I like them on a personal basis. I was a Rand Paul delegate. I'm a big fan of the libertarian movement. But what's up with these Kentucky Republicans, whether it's Thomas Massie, the showboating goofball from Kentucky, the Commonwealth, or Rand Paul, or Mitch McConnell for other reasons, consistently voting against the tariffs, the agenda of President Trump, or even nominees. Shame on all of you. We know Mitch McConnell is out the door, and thanks be to God for that. Daniel Cameron's going to be a great replacement if you're following that race in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. But, Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, My friends, get it together. If not, there's primaries coming. And we saw in Macomb County, Michigan, in Warren, Michigan, that beautiful sports and expo center on the campus of Macomb Community College, just how serious the roars were for the Reagan Democrat. Every president, whether on the campaign trail or in office, had visited that very location since Ronald Reagan. And we had the pictures to prove it when I took a tour of that beautiful facility right before the event on Tuesday. And thank you again for the hospitality of the Michiganders. Great to always see those who fought so hard to make America great again. And thanks to the hospitality of Governor Gretchen Whitmer. You never know. I mean, politics is interesting. It makes for interesting alliances. And she clearly is for the populist movement. Maybe she's seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe she's reformed from all her lockdowns. As President Trump mentioned yesterday at Alabama, this school chose liberty over lockdowns, one of the biggest lines that got a roar from the crowd. It was so much fun last night to see all those students standing literally at attention for their commander-in-chief out of respect for the office and out of excitement to be graduates of such a fine institution. So it was Rally Day in America on Tuesday and Thursday, and nothing could be more exciting as President Trump works to make America healthy again, make America safe again, make America strong again, of course, make America great again at the end of the day. And that's why at RSBN Live, we'll bring you all the unbridled access, all of the coverage, and we can even show you some of those speeches from this past week in case you missed them, because they were really great to see him back on the campaign trail in a sense, because he gets energy from it. He wants to be amongst the people. You might have seen shaking the hands of the students, meeting with Coach Nick Saban, enjoying being with the United Auto Workers in Detroit. One of the big lines there from Tuesday as well. They bankrupted Detroit, the living former predecessors of President Trump, and they wanted to build up Beijing, but that ends with this administration in this golden era for the United States. President Trump working day in and day out in order to fight for you, the middle class. It's just common sense at the end of the day. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's we the people versus the globalists. President Trump finally ends the madness of NPR and PBS this week. Last night, President Donald Trump signed an executive order ending the taxpayer subsidization of National Public Radio. That's NPR and PBS, the public broadcasting service. These entities that receive tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer funds. And each year they spread radical false lies, a woke propaganda disguised as news. Far gone are the days of Mr. Rogers, who actually had great programming, who was a wonderful advocate for public television and something noble to do. President Trump is not against that. He's against the extremists who have taken over at NPR and PBS and have chosen to post a woke agenda and then call it the news. We would never do that here. What we do here is bring you unbridled access, and we tell you we have a bias. We are on the right side of history with you, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. That doesn't matter. It's about we the people. We saw that this week on the campaign trail with President Trump gearing up for the 2025 midterms and celebrating with Michiganders and with students at Alabama. It's about the future. It's about this country. It's about our present day in order to make America great again. NPR ran a story. This is just one example of what they do, titled Cannibalism. It's Perfectly Natural, in which an author described eating another human's placenta. It was really good, that prep that made it taste good. And I'm sorry, I should have warned you before bringing this up because it's quite disgusting. But granted, the husband was a chef, and so he knew how to prepare it osso buco style and used a really nice wine I had brought. It smelled great. It did not taste bad. This was someone actually telling this story on NPR. Silence of the Lambs, anyone? It's really very creepy. It's almost as if it's an Anthony Hopkins character. Mind you, that gentleman cannot watch his performances because he's afraid of seeing himself as Hannibal Lecter, but maybe they'd like some Chianti with that. My God, that's disgusting. In 2021, NPR declared the Declaration of Independence to be a document with flaws and deeply ingrained hypocrisies. They're getting public funding for promoting an agenda against the greatest document ever written. My goodness, it's good that they have been finally defunded. And you know what? We're all about free speech and private funding of that. So go get those private funds, because people donate to NPR and PBS. That's okay. It will no longer be private. It will, or public. It will no longer take your hard-earned taxpayer money and exploit it. When we have mental illness, veterans on the street, we should be taking care of our own here in this country. I can remember my grandma and my late uncle always talking about that. They were populists before populism was popular. And they said, why aren't we taking care of our own people? And that was common sense way back when, and it's common sense today. And Mr. Director, that sponsor one more time? Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. The All Family Pharmacy. Imagine needing that medication and you cannot get it, not because it's not on the shelves, but because a big pharmacist, bureaucrat, globalist does not want you to have it. How crazy is that to think about? Well, All Family Pharmacy has ivermectin. They have the methylene blue. They have these great medications that are essential for you, with over 200, in fact, essential medications that you can get immediately by ordering overnight. And there's no hassle, no worries, especially if you don't have insurance, just peace of mind. So picture this. Your spouse runs out of blood pressure medication. It's late on a Sunday night and that blood pressure spikes. Meanwhile, your kid right down the hall has a terrible fever, and you can't get anywhere to help them out. Well, this is why All Family Pharmacy can come out there to help you. With code RSBN10, that's 10% off. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. That's 10% off right now. Take advantage of this. Keep your medicine cabinet ready to go. With allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Get ivermectin, other essential medications with over 200 in stock. Make sure that medicine cabinet is stocked on behalf of your loved ones. All Family Pharmacy, thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. We also like to thank our great sponsor, Brightcore, who does unbridled, amazing work here right at the network. I have tried this myself to get that gut health right on par, immune support, the anti-aging properties. I've shared with you on the network here, I like to fast in the morning if I can, and a great way to help implement that is something like the Kimchi One from Brightcore, because this helps with digestion, it helps for overall gut health, and so much of the chronic disease issue that Secretary Kennedy mentions really is rooted in gut health. That's where it all starts, and it affects your mental clarity, that brain fog, and just being able to get your tasks done throughout the day. So get 25% off with code RSBN. Visit mybrightcore.com/RSBN or call 888-722-0936. You can even receive up to 50% off by calling today, so do not delay. 888-722-0936. Brightcore, made in the USA. All natural, all good things, everything that comes out of Mother Earth and is good for your gut. Non-GMO, let's go. It is Kimchi One from Brightcore. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And let's continue to run through this list of successes covering the latest news from the Trump White House. President Trump defunding NPR and PBS of their really disgusting and offensive content that promotes a woke DEI agenda while using your taxpayer money. NPR apologized for calling illegal immigrants illegal. I don't know why you'd apologize for that, because that is the correct legal term. They are illegal immigrants. They're not solely migrants. They're not solely immigrants. They are illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. So that's the proper term. Does not mean you hate anyone. It's just categorized to know who is in our country. And every other country has some other system of vetting people. Well, unless you're Europe. I mean, we've learned the tough story with that as they've loosened their Christian identity. And that's not me speaking. That's people I've listened to, whether it be from Sweden or other Nordic countries. all the way to France. I mean, this is something that has really harmed the Western world, just to open the doors without any proper vetting. And here in America, we want immigration. We want legal immigration. Our ancestors came through Ellis Island. I know mine did at the turn of the century, and I am the benefactor of that. But at the same time, when you have a southern border completely wide open, when our friends cannot seek asylum from Belarus, from Poland, from Ukraine and Russia because of that terrible war that's been going on for 3+ years, because of an open southern border, it really starts to grind my gears. And then you have the so-called left, woke, global mindset, these enlightened people like Alejandro Mayorkas or that Autopen Biden, who the cognitive decline really put us in a dangerous position. What about Secretary Lloyd Austin, who lied about his surgery? We're glad he was healthy when he was serving in the office of the Pentagon chief as Secretary of Defense. But you'd think that Karine Jean-Pierre, the DEI press secretary, would have said something. This is the single greatest change in an administration in the history of our country. To go from complete incompetence and actual violent rhetoric and horrible actions, inactions, and just incompetence, on top of, we believe they did it on purpose opening this border. We don't have to worry about that anymore, thanks to President Trump and his team. NPR sounded the alarm about young men who abstain from, warning if the kids are in the room, masturbating to pornography. So they're actually going to take a stance on that, on a moral issue, and then chastise you if you choose to live a Christian religious life. It's amazing to me. They're getting your taxpayer funding. Well, not anymore now, thanks to President Trump's executive order. NPR featuring a Valentine's Day story, get this, centered around queer animals, in which it suggested the make-believe clownfish in Finding Nemo would have been better off as a female, that banana slugs are hermaphrodites, and that some deer are non-binary. I can't, because I got to tell you, when we go up to the North Woods with my family, something we really enjoy doing together, the evolutionary tactic of the deer, you will only see their fawns and the females because they've realized, because of hunting season and because years and years of that, the men, the antlers, tend to stay behind. And it's rather cute to see if the fawn is going to be male or female as those antlers start to bud. So it's actually quite a fun side note. We would put corn out, and this is before my brother got dogs. These labs, they'll run all over the place, and it's always fun for them to be right near the lake. But the female deer would actually come up to you and slam their hoof to the ground and then just kind of warn you like, hey, I'm here, but I got to eat this corn. So I could tell you they're binary. They are male and female. There are two genders for deer, as there are in all of the animal kingdom. Non-binary is nonsense. PBS devoted a panel to what it means to be woke and white privilege. Well, that's just a gem in and of itself. NPR routinely promotes the chemical and surgical mutilation of children as so-called gender-affirming care, without mentioning the irreversible damage caused by these procedures. We here call it child abuse. We here at Right Side Broadcasting Network believe that the people who do these operations on minors should be arrested and should be held criminally liable. The doctors sign an oath not to harm, to preserve life, and to promote the general well-being of their patients. How is cutting off their private parts and mutilating them before they are of age and adults as minors? That's just, it's perverse, it's disgusting, and it needs to stop, and there needs to be consequences. Back in 2021, a PBS station aired a children's program that featured a drag queen named Little Miss Hot Mess. How insane is that? NPR educated the nation on the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts and trans-ceratops. Okay, then PBS White House correspondent Yamich Alcindor characterized President Trump's patriotic 2020 Mount Rushmore speech as a love letter to white resentment that promoted the myth of America. There's no myth of America. We are not only a place, but an idea founded in constitutional principles, rooted in Judeo-Christian beliefs in the Bible. And it's written down in our founding documents, whether it's the Federalist Papers, the Articles of Confederation, into the Declaration, into the Constitution. You see it, it's right there for you. And someone who is a great advocate of all things normal and God-fearing, Mr. Mike Lindell. It was great to see you, sir, over in Warren, Michigan this week. He always has great sales. President Trump pointed him out at the rally on Tuesday, saying, Mike Lindell, he's the master marketer of today. The Percale bed sheets, that closeout sale, all colors, all sizes, $25 with promo code RSBN, mypillow.com/RSBN, 800-836-7566. Support Mr. Mike Lindell and RSBN. Shop now at mypillow.com/RSBN and save with code RSBN. Very easy to remember. Thank you to Mr. Mike Lindell, the purveyor of free speech, the fighter for election integrity, and also my pal in the battle against woke minds and losers like Jimmy Kimmel. Mr. Mike Lindell, you are the man on a mission, a man for such a time as this. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And let's continue to go through the list of NPR and CBS. President Trump just last night signing an executive order rescinding their federal funding, which will save us money in the long run and stop their woke agenda. And again, we're all about free speech. So if these institutions want to be privately funded and not take your taxpayer money and actually believe in conscious rights and the freedom of speech as we share and treasure right here on the right side of history, then be our guests. We're all about that, but no more federal funding. NPR reported on the cousin of diet culture known as healthism, which is the idea that we have to be healthy, as if that was somehow a bad thing. NPR assigned 3 reporters to investigate how the thumbs up emoji is racist. I'm speechless. NPR suggested doorway sizes are based on latent fat phobia. Okay, I don't know what that is. PBS produced an entire movie celebrating a transgender teenager's so-called changing gender identity. It can't happen. You're either female or you're male. And for the adults in the room, it's our responsibility, whether or not we have children, to tell minors the truth, especially if you're a coach. You know, look out for that, guys, especially the men watching. If there's anything you see out there in your community, because this woke mind virus has swept the country, watch out for it in your neck of the woods, call it out, help support those who are in need, and you can make a large difference before they do something crazy like these mutilations that are taking place. NPR absurdly claimed limited scientific evidence of physical advantage exists between male and female athletes. And we know President Trump was very funny last night on stage at the University of Alabama talking about the weightlifters that would shatter these records, these failed male bodybuilders who would go into the women's competition. And he said, oh, the first lady hates when I do it. She says, honey, it's not presidential. But then everyone starts laughing, and I had to get footage of it because I think it's one of my favorite lines that he adds to his great speeches. So we enjoyed that immensely. Thank you, President Trump, for not only the entertainment this week, but the hard work and the celebrations of 100 plus days in the White House. We're going to toss this now to Washington for a live committee hearing and get all of the information that's happening for you right on Capitol Hill.
This hearing of the Subcommittee on Military and Foreign Affairs will come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time. I recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss one of the most complex and serious threats to our national security, the unauthorized use of unmanned aerial systems, or UAS, over U.S. military installations and sensitive sites. In recent years, we've seen a surge in drone incursions over military installations across the country. In 2024, the Department of Defense stated that there are more than 1 million drones registered in the United States and estimated that there are more than 8,500 drones flown legally across the country every day. I've even seen some of these drone incursions firsthand during my time in the South Carolina Air National Guard. However, these incursions are not from hobbyists being blown off course. The multitude of drones reported flying over bases in the past several years revealed a coordinated effort by our adversaries to collect valuable intelligence and surveillance of some of our most sensitive military equipment. These incursions often are designed to disrupt important trainings and create chaos for a number of reasons. Number one, base commanders have inadequate or non-existent monitoring capabilities. Two, a near total lack of counter-drone capabilities. Three, unclear standard operating procedures to guide base commanders' responses and decision-making. And finally, four, ambiguous legal authorities both on and off base. This threat is magnified by the complex regulatory and prosecutorial framework that was patched together by the previous administration in what I would argue is a poor attempt to address this issue. Right now, the Department of Defense, Federal Aviation Administration, Intelligence Community, Department of Justice, and Department of Homeland Security are all involved in some aspects of the counter-UAS efforts. As a result, there is no agency with primary authority on countering drone incursions, leading to confusion and, more importantly, gaps on how to identify and mitigate this threat. This interagency failure was on full display last winter when hundreds of drones were spotted in the skies above New Jersey and other parts of the Northeast. After several temporary flight restrictions and mass confusion among state, local, and federal partners, the Biden administration provided the public no answers what was happening above them. However, with only a few weeks of the current administration taking office, they revealed that the drones over New Jersey were actually authorized by the FAA. This instance raises multiple questions as to why the previous administration left the American people in the dark for over a month when they knew the simple truth. Another notable incident occurred at Langley Air Force Base in December of 2023. Over 17 days, unidentified drones repeatedly breached our sensitive military airspace, one of most America's critical installations. The F-22 Raptor squadrons were moved to alternate bases to lessen exposure, and discussions were initiated on installing physical countermeasures. These are not isolated incidents. In February, the commander of NORAD and NORTHCOM testified to Congress that there were over 350 detections of drones at 100 different military installations last year alone. Additionally, since 2023, 2 Chinese nationals have been arrested for illegally flying drones over military installations to conduct surveillance. One of these individuals was caught attempting to flee the U.S. and return to China with sensitive footage he had recorded. Today, this committee will hear from officials from the Department of Defense on what the Trump administration is doing to help combat this issue and bring an end to these illegal drone incursions. We must demand full accountability, expedited technological upgrades, and enhanced oversight to safeguard our sovereignty and ensure that our military remains unexposed to foreign surveillance and potential threats. I'm hopeful that our witnesses here today have suggestions on how Congress can help empower the right federal agencies to combat this problem and secure the skies above our military bases. I now recognize Ranking Member Subramaniam for the purpose of making an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for holding this important hearing, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today and for your service to our country and to making our airspace safe. It's clear that UAS is an issue right now. It's the future of warfare, from the war in Ukraine to our own military bases in the continental United States. We are seeing real time that UAS are redefining how battles are fought and how intelligence is gathered. And I believe it's been 350 drones that have been reported in the last year over 100 different military installations. That's 350 different potential national security breaches that we know of. These include highly sensitive sites such as nuclear facilities and major military bases, and that's a huge threat to our national security and the lives of our service members. And unfortunately, our lack of coordinated, effective response needs to be addressed immediately. And I know everyone here today wants to work on it and is planning on working on it. And so we're familiar with this issue in my home state and the Commonwealth of Virginia. In December 2023, service members at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia saw drones hovering over their airspace for 17 days. And Langley, for those who don't know, is home to key national security assets like the F-22 Raptor stealth fighter, and it plays an important role in keeping us safe here in our nation's capital. And so we also have some important naval assets in that area too. And these drones demonstrated complicated aerial maneuvers and didn't just broadcast on known frequencies, suggesting that they weren't just a local hobbyist making an innocent mistake. As far as we can tell in Congress, there was and still is not a cohesive or coordinated plan for how we're going to deal with this. But maybe we can learn more today about what's happening now and what we can do moving forward. Our job on this committee is to find answers to questions, and I have a lot. Who is piloting these drones, for instance? Are these criminal actors? Are these foreign adversaries? Are they simply local hobbyists with advanced capabilities? I'm not sure about that, but maybe that's the case. And what are they doing? Are they gathering intelligence? Are they probing for weaknesses? Are they planning an attack? And finally, what is our plan for dealing with them safely and effectively? Because these UAS are a clear and present danger to our national security, and we need to have a plan to counter them. There are several areas I'd like to focus on today. The first is counter-drone authorities. Right now, the U.S. law allows the Department of Energy, Justice, Defense, and Homeland Security to detect and respond to drone activities in certain situations, such as nuclear facilities, for instance, missile defense assets, or other covered facilities. But only around half of all military installations actually fall under this definition of covered facility, which is why I think this may be something we should look at for change. The second is counter-drone technologies. It's not just as simple as shooting them down, as we know. There are homes and businesses and parks near bases like Langley, and people live there, children play there. Shooting down drones could endanger people in these communities, especially if we don't know what payloads the drones may carry. And a missed shot could also pose a threat to commercial air traffic as well. And so, we need to find a way to safely counter some of these incursions. And we have other technologies at our disposal, like jamming and disrupting and even taking over unknown or hostile drones. But there's a lot of work to do to develop these capabilities, and some of that work actually takes place in my district in Northern Virginia. And with that said, I don't know of a silver bullet, and so it's going to take a coordinated effort, I think, at the state, local, and federal level. And so we're all going to have to work together because everyone's got different jurisdictions. And I'd like to, on that front, see if we can work together and maybe have some sort of task force in place so that information is easily gathered and where everyone's up to date on the latest technology as well as the best practices. And so this is a very timely hearing on an important issue, and I want to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to come up with a plan to protect our military bases and protect the American people. So I yield back.
Thank you for that. I'm pleased to welcome an expert panel of witnesses for today's discussion. I'd first like to welcome Rear Admiral Paul Spadero, the Vice Director for Operations, or J3, for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Mark Detlefson, who is the current Acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense and Hemispheric Affairs. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the FAA is no longer testifying at today's hearing, but they have committed to answering in writing any questions that our members have. If any member has questions they would like to submit to the FAA following this hearing, please get them to staff for the FAA to answer. Now we're going to administer the oath to the witnesses. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please take your seat. Let the record show that the witnesses answered in the affirmative. We appreciate you being here today and look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we will have read your written statement, and it will appear in full in the hearing record. Please limit your oral statement to 5 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it is on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, your 5 minutes have expired, and we would ask that you please wrap up. I now recognize Rear Admiral Spadero for his opening statement.
Good afternoon, Chairman Timmons, Ranking Member Subramaniam, committee members, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and thank you for your support and your oversight. Admittedly, several of my opening comments will echo those of the Chairman and the Ranking Member. The rapid emergence, proliferation, and employment of unmanned systems has fundamentally changed the way that both professional militaries as well as terrorist organizations conduct warfare. Over the last few years, we have seen the employment of unmanned systems, in particular unmanned aerial systems, in every major conflict, from the Russia-Ukraine war to Iran's attacks on Israel and attacks against U.S. bases and ships across the Middle East. And most tragically, an Iranian-supported militant group successfully employed a one-way attack drone on Tower 22 in Jordan, killing 3 U.S. service members and wounding 40 on January 27, 2024. Here in the homeland, as Assistant Secretary Livison will note in his opening remarks, the mass drone incursions over Joint Base Langley Eustis in December 2023 reminded us that the homeland is no longer a sanctuary. And should our adversary choose to employ drones for surveillance or even attack, we would not be prepared to adequately defend our homeland and only marginally capable to defend our military installations. The incursions over Joint Base Langley Eustis were not the first. They've not been the last, but they were the longest and the largest series of incursions that we have seen to date. In the comprehensive review of that event, as well as in the actions we took in follow-on incursions like those that occurred over Plant 42 in Palmdale, California, and over Picatinny Arsenal and Naval Weapons Station Earl in New Jersey, have resulted in improvements. But more action is needed, and the Joint Force has made counter-UAS a priority line of effort. We are now better prepared to respond to incursions with the designation of Commander U.S. Northern Command and Commander U.S. Indo-Pacific Command as the operational synchronizers in their respective areas of responsibility. Last year, and within weeks of being assigned this role, General Guillot, the Commander of U.S. Northern Command, released a comprehensive commander's assessment that has served as a roadmap to building the necessary command and control and standard operating procedures to address the drone threat. Over the last year, we have also invested in education and training against this threat. NORTHCOM has been the central driving force for the work being done by several organizations in partnership with industry to deliver the domain awareness and counter-UAS systems that we require. And lastly, we are progressing well in our completion of the counter-UAS tasks assigned to us in the fiscal year 25 NDAA. We appreciate your continued support and your oversight. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and I will now pass to Secretary Divison.
Chairman Timmons, Ranking Member Subramaniam, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. The events of December 2023 at Joint Base Langley Eustis served to focus and energize DoD's counter-small UAS efforts in the homeland. During the event, DoD struggled to address the incursions in a timely and effective fashion, owing at least in part to challenges within the DoD and our ability to implement a relatively untested interagency coordination process. To some extent, those challenges from JBLE still exist. However, we have worked since then to improve and refine our processes and coordination efforts, and we have seen improvements in subsequent responses. I can assure the committee that the department is as frustrated by these events as you are. However, we can't simply focus on looking back and waste precious resources. As a department, we act, we review that action, we adjust, and we move out. Today, I'm here to tell you that we are continuing to move out. I'm confident that we are in a stronger position to defend DoD installations today than we were in December of 2023. We are fighting this threat on 3 fronts: internal process reviews, generating better domain awareness, and clarifying commander's authority and legislation. Internally, we must focus on the ability to provide response at the speed of relevance. The designation of U.S. NORTHCOM and U.S. INDOPACOM late last year as the counter-UAS operational synchronizers in their respective areas of the homeland was an essential step. We've developed more streamlined interagency coordination consistent with Section 130I. We are also conducting a comprehensive review, as requested in the FY25 NDAA Section 925, and where necessary, consolidating and updating DoD policy. This is an effort long overdue, and it provides us with direction and momentum. Lastly, working with our interagency partners, like our colleagues from the FAA, we have enabled DoD to sponsor facilities, which provide a critical mission to DoD but are not directly DoD facilities or assets. Second, generating better domain awareness is essential to developing an understanding of what is flying in our airspace and how to separate the negligent from the nefarious. This is the fundamental issue we saw at Langley in New Jersey. DoD is working through venues like the Joint Rapid Acquisition Cell, the JRAC, to rapidly acquire the right equipment and to give commanders better tools to understand the operating environment and the ability to effectively conduct non-kinetic and kinetic mitigations. Commander U.S. Northcom phrased it this way in his posture hearing in February: "You can't defeat what you can't see." On the legislative front, we continue to engage with members of Congress to seek modest but important refinements to DoD's counter-UAS authorities under Section 130I. Our legislative proposal is intended to allow the Department to protect additional locations and missions, add greater stability for long-term planning and resource allocation within the Department, and facilitate improved understanding and cooperation among the U.S. interagency and local partners. Ultimately, I believe we need to address all these issues with end users in mind. Our installation commanders and the security personnel charged with the duties to protect our installations, our operations, and ultimately, our personnel. Lastly, the President of the United States has issued several executive orders directing the Department of Defense to take all appropriate and lawful measures to ensure the complete operational control of the border. The Department, in turn, is responding by preparing the path for employment of counter-SUAS activities along the border, both in support of DoD interests and in support of DHS as the lead federal agency. As the operational environment, legislation, and threats evolve, policy must adapt to ensure DoD's ability to continue to advance our national defense objectives remains. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Subramaniam, and distinguished members of the committee, in conclusion, the Homeland continues to face increased and evolving threats from UAS. To address these challenges requires a whole-of-government approach and a unified effort. We must modernize the ability to assess the threat, determine its weaknesses, and acquire and deploy countermeasures. Thank you for the support of Congress and for your continued commitment and support of the Department of Defense. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Rear Admiral Spadero, how many drone incursions have taken place over U.S. military installations over the past 2 years? We got the number last time we had a briefing of 350, but have they grown, or what's the current data you're willing to share?
Yeah, so the exact number I'd be happy to share in a classified setting, but I can tell you that it has grown.
I'm actually curious, why did we get the 350 number in an unclassified setting? That was one of the questions I had.
It's a great question, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's do this. Can you discuss procedures that DoD has in place for a base commander when the base commander gets reports of an unauthorized drone incursion?
Yeah, so currently there is a standard operating procedure that's been published by the commander of U.S. Northern Command. So each base has been provided that standard operating procedure. The expectation is they will respond in accordance with the.
When was that? When was that created?
It was just published here recently, within the last month. It was finalized and published.
So what percent of base commanders have any technology to actually track drones as opposed to just, ooh, I saw a drone, and then you report it?
Yeah, so the capabilities at each base is varied. Again, the specifics for the individual locations would be better in a classified setting, but it is not comprehensive. I can tell you that it is not sufficient, and again varies from base to base, from very little to somewhat more comprehensive.
Is that something that Congress can help with authorizations and appropriations to get additional resources? Because I think that I would feel that most bases should have the, at the very least, the ability to track. Whether they have countermeasures is a different thing, but is that something that y'all need? You need additional money?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I think the development, fielding, the acquisition, distribution of domain awareness sensors is the critical first step. It's not the only thing. Obviously, we need a method to exert command and control so that we can build a common operating picture, because it will take layers of different sensors, because one sensor may be better against certain UAVs and certain flight profiles, and you may have to rely on different sensors to round out the picture. So being able to fuse all that together to get the complete picture will be necessary. And then, as you mentioned, getting to a point where we can actually respond, that's an entirely next investment that needs to be made. So yes, we do need more sensors. We're addressing the shortfall right now with the fielding of flyaway kits. So these will be kits that will be available for bases that have very limited capability to detect on their own and build domain awareness. And should they have an incursion that they're unable to resolve, they would solicit the help from Commander U.S. Northern Command, and this flyaway kit, as well as expertise and additional resources that would be required, would be immediately deployed to that location.
So I guess resources are probably fairly easy, and y'all are going to work on telling us what you actually need from a technology perspective. But the other side is the authority. So, I mean, does a base commander have clear authorities what they can and can't do relative to whether the drone is in their airspace or just outside their airspace? And is that as big or bigger of a problem?
So all of our installations have the authority that's afforded them under the standing rules of engagement and the standing rules for the use of force. In those rules, if they can establish that there's hostile intent or hostile act, then they not only have the authority, but they have the absolute right and responsibility to respond appropriately to protect themselves, forces, as well as DoD property. So those are standing rules that they have. Now, being able to discern hostile intent and hostile act, as referred to in the opening comments, may be very challenging. Is this negligent activity being conducted by someone just flying a drone irresponsibly, whether that is a recreational enthusiast or it is someone that's using a drone for commercial aspects? So it can be a challenge here in the homeland to determine that.
So a base commander has the authority to, for example, arrest a Chinese national that's a quarter-mile off base?
He does not have the authority to detain someone that is off base. He would have to coordinate with local law enforcement to apprehend someone that is operating a drone outside of the base. Now, I know Secretary Dillison will talk about 130I authorities, which is something that we really do want to talk about today because I think it's important. But under 130I authorities, there is some additional room to respond. For a covered facility, merely the presence of that drone conducting unauthorized surveillance or suspected of conducting unauthorized surveillance or interfering with operations, as you referred to in your opening statement about the interference with F-22 operations, that would meet the standard for response rather than having to determine hostile intent or hostile act.
Thank you for that. My time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Subramanian, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to go back to something I mentioned a couple of times, which is what is a covered facility and a not covered facility. And Rear Admiral Spadero, if you're not a covered facility, what does that mean? Like, does that impair your ability to respond? And what do covered facilities have that non-covered ones don't?
It's if you're not covered, you can request to be covered, but you'd have to meet the criteria to become a covered facility, and that is one of the problems with the 130I authorization is meeting the criteria for covered. An example of this would be Luke Air Force Base, where F-35 training takes place for roughly 3/4 of those that fly F-35s, and it is not a covered facility because training facilities are not covered. So it would be problematic to actually get approval for Luke Air Force Base to be a 130I. Now, as I mentioned earlier, under 130I, if a drone is conducting unauthorized surveillance or suspected even of conducting unauthorized surveillance, then the base commander would be able to respond to that. Unauthorized surveillance may or may not meet the criteria of hostile intent, which would give you the authority to respond under the standing rules of engagement and the standing rules for the use of force. So it relieves some of the burden on that base commander to determine that there is an imminent threat. If this is interfering with our operations, if this is giving a potential adversary a look at our base and our sensitive activities, then we have the authority to respond.
And mentioned before having to reach out to local jurisdictions if someone's operating UAS outside of a base. And what kind of coordination is currently being done with state and local jurisdictions? Is it sort of ad hoc, or is there like a process in place right now? And does federal law limit the extent of engagement with state and local? And how can we make that better?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So each base commander, one of his imperatives is to build relationships with the local community. That would include law enforcement agencies. It is covered extensively in all of the base commander courses. So they're part of their training and their education program before they assume command is building how to build those relationships, the importance, what the limitations of those are. So each individual base commander is responsible. There are additional lessons learned and protocols and best practices about how to engage law enforcement on this particular threat. But those occur at our bases and did occur at Joint Base Langley Eustis. They had a very tight relationship with local law enforcement, with sheriffs, police departments, as well as other federal agencies, law enforcement agencies that have capability in that area. And they did respond in concert together to try to apprehend individuals that were responsible for that drone activity over the base. So that it does occur, and it is very important.
And as far as technology and mitigation, what I don't know, maybe this is the right forum for this, but broadly, do you think there's technology gaps currently, and do you think that there's progress being made towards kind of filling those gaps, and what can we do, both in Congress as well as the private industry, to help kind of fill the gaps when it comes to technology for trying to address both kinetic and non-kinetic solutions?
Yeah, in general, the technology to field systems has far outpaced the technology to defeat those systems. It's a much wider, broader, deeper market for drone application for commercial and recreational purposes. So hence that technology has evolved very quickly from radio-controlled drones to now fully autonomous drones that may or may not even rely on reception of a GPS signal, which would make it very challenging to intercept. So on the counter-drone activity, you have to come back to agencies that would be interested in that, like Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, law enforcement agencies. So we have to partner and we have to create that demand within industry to get technology back on pace to counter this ever-increasing emergence of drone technology.
Do you feel like we have the personnel right now and the expertise in the country to be able to do this?
I think we've seen a good response. I'll defer to Secretary Dillison. He can talk about DIU and other organizations that have really made a solid partnership with industry to advance this technology.
Thank you, Admiral. Yes, there are several different organizations within the DoD that are looking at this issue and moving out rapidly to acquire new capabilities, such as the JRAC, the Joint Counter-UAS Office, and DIU. All of those, this is a focus area and one of their primary lines of effort.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. McGuire, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr.
And you're watching there live a GOP oversight meeting on drone technologies. This was a big deal going back to Otto Penn's administration. Remember that Chinese spy balloon happening? My goodness. We're going to toss to a quick commercial break. Stick with us here, the Right Side Broadcasting Network Live.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely. It's 1:03 Eastern at the beautiful White House, where the latest news from the Trump White House is winning, as President Trump said last night, fight, fight, fight. And you just caught some of that coverage of a drone hearing, specifically with the government oversight. We know that the Chinese spy balloon, very scary what happened under the Otto Penn administration. And think back on this just a few short months ago, how frightening it was to think that the Otto Penn, or was it Dr. Jill or Barack Hussein Obama or someone else in his administration, had the football to the nuclear codes. Vladimir Putin would speak up about actually using a nuke in the world. And how scary is that when you think about, we could have had another 9/11 with all of these terrorists that were in our country coming through the open southern border. Thank God for President Trump and his team sealing it and making the country safe again. And scary to hear some of that testimony from some of our experts dealing with drone technologies and dealing with spy balloons and everything that our enemies seek to do harm against us. But fortunately, we have the toughest president, a man for the mission, a man for such a time as this. And this was a big week, whether it's the Religious Liberty Commission, whether it is the executive order to end NPR and PBS funding, whether it's the great jobs report, the great economic reports coming out, fighting for the UAW, for automobile manufacturing here in the United States, to celebrating the extraordinary achievements of the Alabama Crimson Tide 2025 commencement ceremony just yesterday. And it has been really a 100 days to reflect upon. And I had the privilege of speaking to Pastor Lorenzo Sewell at the Warren, Michigan rally just the other day at Macomb Community College. He, of course, opened up with prayer, speaking so highly about President Trump and also constitutional governance, giving us an update on those who would seek to rig elections and try to harm the American people by pushing away our very right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the private, sacred honor of who we vote for in the ballot box. And maybe there will be a great announcement forthcoming from Pastor Sewell on whether or not he might jump into a certain race for higher office in the Wolverine state. So we will head back to that from Tuesday, Warren, Michigan, my exclusive interview with Pastor Lorenzo Sewell. Aptly due, great timing for Pastor Lorenzo Sewell. Great to see you, sir. God bless you.
Oh, man.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting.
I mean, what else more do you want out of life, right? I mean,
Amen.
The President of the United States of America, can you imagine they stripped him bare, made him the greatest president of all time? You know why? He has nothing to hide, just like Jesus was stripped down to the ground, died, but rose again.
Amen, amen, amen. And I think about the big figures in the Bible, not only our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, literally exposed. We just celebrated that resurrection, but there's no resurrection without that passion and Good Friday. And this guy, what he's gone through, almost no human has been able to endure. And someone who I think recognizes God saving his life in Butler, Pennsylvania, less than a year ago. It's incredible.
Yeah, and he came to my church, remember?
Right.
1 month before.
Yes.
We prayed for him. He experienced a millimeter miracle. Can you imagine that? By if we would have moved this here 1 millimeter, we wouldn't have the 47th president. But thank God for his mercy, his grace, his compassion on our country to allow our president to go through the muck and the miry clay. Now he pulled him out and put his feet on the rock to stay.
Amen. And I love that so much. And I love your enthusiasm, your prayer. What's it been like for your church and the American church 100 days of President Trump back in the office?
Oh, it's been revival, right?
Yeah.
And we've also been able to see President Trump justified. We have a case. 24-2006, Ramon Jackson versus the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit for election fraud. We have the only case. We have the people. We have the proof. We just came back from Cincinnati. Can you imagine
Fantastic.
that?
Oh, wow.
So we're bringing justice to so many people that feel like they've been up under injustice. That's what our president has done in these first 100 days.
That is a beautiful thing. And any updates on that case specifically of where we can go with that? Because so many people have worked so hard on this because of what's been happening in municipalities like Detroit, Philadelphia, I think of Chicago,
Sure.
where for a long time there were very questionable elections and some people even running in Democrat primaries. It goes in both parties where you weren't the hand-selected person and you ran as a citizen like President Trump did, but that wasn't quite allowed, especially in the municipality of Detroit.
Yeah, when President Trump said fight, 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 and when he said there was cheating, we have to stop the steal. Now, in our case, we were just in Cincinnati today, right, at J.D. Vance's brother's church, Corey Bowman. We were there with the Jan Sixers. We brought an army. This is why. They're about to pick out of 16 judges, 3 judges that will be a panel. This panel will decide the one thing that our plaintiff, who's the first in the class, Ramon Jackson, this is what he's asking the court. Is it legal for a state or a municipality to vote for someone through a driver's license transaction, meaning they leave the city of Detroit, they get a new driver's license, the state re-registers them back to their old address, votes for them, and casts a ballot. Is that legal? That's what we have before the courts right now. And we know no honest judge will say that's legal, right? So we're going to have a judgment, and we're going to be able to validate, vindicate, and justify our president and so many others. Millions of people knew that there was cheating, but now we're going to stop the steal.
And how do people move forward, not only in the judicial system, bringing these cases to light, fighting back, using their constitutional, God-given American rights, but should they get involved as well, being precinct committeemen or within their church themselves? How can they look at themselves and just say, hey, I'm a random citizen, I'm the everyday man or woman. How can I help change society for the better?
This is a very good question, because what we're finding out is these municipalities in these states, they're using people that don't vote. They're using people that are vulnerable, they're high transient. So through a driver's license transaction, they're re-registering them. If you are an average citizen, the first thing you need to do is you need to go down to your city council. You need to consider running for clerk. You need to consider running for public office, because the reason why we almost lost our country, because when good people do nothing, that's how we lose our country.
That is such a true statement. It's really, I go back to our founders and their faith and the fact that in the course of human events, sometimes you are called upon to stand up and, if you have to, separate from the powers that be. Our founders didn't necessarily want to leave the United Kingdom.
Sure.
This is a British global empire at the time, the strongest navy. I'm sure had some fear in their hearts or trepidation, and we know this from John Adams struggling with his cousin Samuel.
Sure.
Samuel saying, we need the revolution, and John famously saying, the law was broken, the Boston Massacre, I'm going to represent these British soldiers. It wasn't popular, but we were equal under the law, all inspired by Magna Carta, but sadly the roots of that great empire turned away on itself, and that's why we were born into a constitutional republic under God. And sadly, the UK, we love them to death, but they're going away from that church and that foundation and their Christian roots as we're speaking right now, as we seem to be having a revival here in America.
Got to be real careful. We cannot be so satisfied with President Trump that we miss the very points that you just made. Our founding fathers would expect we the people, right? Congress only has 500 plus people, right? It's the 360 million we the people that have to hold our employees accountable. They're our employees. We're shareholders. We're not donors. We're going to hold them accountable to make sure that, number one, our interest, right? Our interest is fair elections. One day, paper ballots, IDs. Why would I run in a rigged race? So some people are saying when I'm running for Senate, I feel like I'm already running for Senate because I'm talking to the Department of Education. I'm lobbying for housing. I'm fighting hard for the flu that's killing so many chickens in Michigan. I'm fighting hard for it. We got to stop the steal, number one, and then after we do that, we got to equip candidates that have character and competency. It can't be a popularity contest, because typically it's a popularity contest. We got to have competency and character so we can get our country back.
And you jumped ahead of my next question. What is the future political ambition for Pastor Lorenzo Soul doing this incredible work for election integrity and in the Lord's house, speaking truth to power?
I really do believe that senators are important. There's only 100 of them, right? And ever since the inauguration, I have been in Senate hearings. I've been walking through the Hart building. I've been walking through the Dirksen building. I know those buildings well, right? I've been walking through, going to this, the committee hearings, and this is what I'm saying. It's like sending a kid to college with a credit card. They're calling you every day. You know what they're saying? Dad, my grades are good. Dad, my grades are good. Then you get your credit card statement, you get the report card, and you're like, what were they doing, right? And that's what our senators are doing, and it's sad. We got to stand up for truth, and we got to first stop the steal, and then I am thinking hard about running for Senate.
Amen. Would you be willing to announce that right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live? Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll hold you to it, my friend. Well, God bless you, Pastor Soul. You've done so much, again, in the Lord's house, in his vineyard, as he calls us all to do. This Judeo-Christian nation, this revival happening in the American church is a beautiful thing. And then also being civic-minded, something that we are all called to. Would you pray us out before President Trump comes on stage today?
Absolutely. Father, in the name of Jesus, I pray for everybody that's watching by your Spirit. Would you reach out to those that need healing physically, emotionally, and spiritually? For you said in your word that it's by your stripes that they can be healed. Father, we pray for marriages that need to be healed, relationships with parents that need to be healed. We pray because you said in your word, if my people that are called by my name, if they humble themselves and pray, you said if we turn from our sin, you said you would hear our prayers, forgive us, and heal our land. We're praying for healing for our land. Anoint our president for such a time as this to do your will on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And amen.
Amen. Pastor,
Amen.
thank you so
Amen.
much. God
bless you, my brother. God
You are the
bless
best.
you.
We'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you. Thank you
Looking
so
forward
much.
to your announcement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And a pleasure to have Pastor Lorenzo Sol right here in Michigan. Always a joy to have the great pastor on Right Side Broadcasting Network to share and break bread in the Word and pray together. What other network do you see that? It's something very special where we're very open about the foundations of this country and what matters most, not Republican versus Democrat, but again, we the people fighting for this country. Truly honored to have been in Warren, Michigan, joined by Megan Kohler, as well as we celebrated those 100 days. And it's fun to watch it, the playback, especially when you're there, because you just see the depth of all the thousands of people that show up for a Trump rally. And now we've had 4 this year, including the commencement, and we look forward to many more. We know President Trump becomes revitalized and enjoys being amongst the people and supporters. So quick to really take a day out of their schedule, to take off of work, take off of school, whatever it might be, to share in the successes with the 45th and 47th President of the United States. And some of those successes this week with Michael Waltz being removed from the National Security Advisor role and then appointed to become the UN ambassador. The mission in New York City, so crucial to the future of this country. Michael Waltz will be fantastic, awaiting Senate confirmation. If they delay, as they have in the past, that will be a recess appointment, and we look forward to that. These ambassadors need to be appointed immediately, the rest of them. Fortunately, we have Ambassador Mike Huckabee over in Israel, also Ambassador David Perdue for China, some of the most important ones for the geopolitical structure and international security. But come on, Congress, get on it. Get this job done. You have a full-time job and you act like you're so ridiculously busy. We just know that's not the case. Some of you want to delay the MAGA agenda and the mandate that was given to you by the American people on November 5th of last year. So get to it now. Don't delay, or I will share your phone numbers and your emails right on this network, as I have in the past. Thank you to our sponsors at Colonial Metals Group. Paul Stone, the CEO, leading the charge for you to scan that QR code now. Shield your savings today because China is dumping U.S. bonds. They're grabbing prime time American farmland and rolling out its new digital currency. Look, I don't want to talk hate and doom and gloom. I'm all about positivity and optimism, especially here on the right side of history. But China is plotting an economic Pearl Harbor for the United States. You see their actions with tariffs. You see their war games against our friends, the Taiwanese people, who we share in free and fair trade, especially when it comes to the chips on these phones, crucial to the future of both free nations. But you don't want to devastate your 401k or IRA properties and assets regardless of who's in charge and regardless of the system of government you live under. But President Trump is an economic genius because he's letting retirement savers like you protect your life savings with gold, 100% tax-free. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on gold. The number one inflation-proof asset that survived the fall of currencies throughout the centuries. And when you call the trustworthy experts at Colonial Metals Group at 800-234-0089, you'll get that freegoldguide.com/RSBN with patriots like Judge Jeanine Pirro endorsing this great group, among many others. Plus, you stand to receive $7,500 in free silver. Think about that as a leg up in this inflated economy, thanks to trying to fix the printing of the money and the weakening of the American dollar by Autopen Biden. Freegoldguide.com/RSBN, 800-234-0089. Do not delay. Call today and heed the warnings of people like Warren Buffett, who know a thing or two about the economy. Thank you to Paul Stone and Colonial Metals Group for sponsoring us here on the right side of history at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. It's 1:18 on the East Coast, and that makes it, let's do some quick math here. That would be 10:19 in the morning on the West Coast of America. We're covering the latest news from the Trump White House, inside and outside of the Beltway. If you wish to opine or have an America First story that is of interest to us and to you, feel free to reach out at feedback@rsbn.tv, feedback@rsbn.tv. We want to know how we can be your voice, because we seek to be that channel that brings you this unbridled access to your government, but also to advocate for you against the powers that be. We know over the course, especially the last 4 years, people being canceled from social media apps to being arrested at their school board meetings, especially the people in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You wonder why it swung so far to the right, why Governor Glenn Youngkin got elected, why President Trump nearly won the Commonwealth the last election around. It's because people were bullied. They could not pray outside of Planned Parenthoods. They were arrested without due process, denied Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial simply for standing out there, Catholics praying the rosary outside of a Planned Parenthood. Think about how crazy that is. Look at that beautiful shot as well of our Capitol. I mean, this is our nation's foundation within a federal city. And I love going there just to see the ornate, beautiful monuments lit up at night. And you think about the people who walked those hallowed grounds to create this vision, a federal city that represented all of America. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a gift to us to preserve and protect and defend, just as those Virginia moms and dads went into the school board meetings and said, no, there's not going to be this perverted content in our children's libraries. It's our schools, it's our taxpayer money, it's our kids. And it's our constitutional republic. And here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, we're with you on the right side of history to defend you and yours against totalitarian, perverted, Marxist, communist, fascist, extreme ideologies that sadly seem to still exist. But we know that President Ronald Reagan once said, we have to pass on this great constitutional republic, these freedoms. They're not naturally brought through the bloodstream. You have to hand it over. And it's by teaching these great things about our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that these extremist things do not get repeated. So while the mind, or the woke mind virus, is getting medicated, make sure that your medicine cabinet is safe and stocked in case there's an emergency. So imagine needing a medication and then you can't get it, not because it's out of stock, but because someone doesn't want you to have it. And that someone is from Big Pharma. That's where All Family Pharmacy comes into play. When others make it complicated, they make it simple at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Code RSBN10, that's 10% off. That is RSBN10. Easy to remember. All Family Pharmacy is there to fight for you. They have ivermectin, essential medications, nearly totaling around 200 in stock of different kinds to keep your home safe when your wife has high blood pressure or your kid has a terrible fever and it's late on Sunday night and the pharmacy's not open. It could happen to you. It has happened in America. Being prepared is not an option. It's essential when you look at safety in the United States. All Family Pharmacy takes care of it. You order online, their doctors handle the prescription, and you get your meds shipped to you right away. There's even an overnight option so that you don't have to fear any longer. No insurance, no hassle, just peace of mind. That is allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Code RSBN10, 10% off. Get ivermectin, all other essential medications brought to your door overnight if necessary. Thank you to All Family Pharmacy for sponsoring us here on the right side of history at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And it is 1, 2, 3, easy as ABC, all simple as do, re, mi, right here at the network. 123 on the East Coast. We love this country. We love you, the viewers. Tell us what your thoughts are from this week. Did you like the content? I thought it was so much fun to really reflect on 100 days, whether it was being in Warren, Michigan for Rally Day in America, or the commencement ceremony just yesterday in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or the awesome coverage that my wonderful colleague, the magnificent Matthew Alvarez, captured in Washington, D.C. at the White House, the Eisenhower building, with those top officials in our government working overtime for you, the American people. And what a team President Trump has assembled in this short period of time. We saw in the cabinet meeting just yesterday, President Trump focused on highlighting just everything these great cabinet members are doing, especially Elon Musk at Doge. Without his leadership, without the engineers, without the CEOs, CFOs, that team that has come out of the woodwork who did not want the limelight, but rather volunteering their time to find the waste, fraud, and abuse, to be called names like Nazi. I actually I don't encourage this, but I had to call out someone on Facebook. They went to an Evanston, Illinois rally. How stupid to see these signs that said, Elon Musk is a Nazi. Do they know what a Nazi is? Honestly, define what a Nazi is. It's the National Socialist Party of Germany. You dilute the evils of what Hitler did when you call freedom-loving people like Elon Musk a Nazi. It's unnecessary, it's vicious, it's evil. It does not bring people together. And why would you waste your time in Evanston when you could be at a food pantry serving someone, when you could be maybe housing a homeless vet, when you can use your wealth to volunteer at your church, give of your time, talent, or treasure? No, you're busy attacking President Trump and Elon Musk because you happen to disagree. But do you understand? Or are you the woke mind virus that has gone awry? Do you probably need something like a Great Place all-family pharmacy to get your Trump derangement syndrome medication? Now, I'm just joking there, but seriously, wake up. Knock it off. It's so divisive. And that's why it's sad to see the prairie state of Illinois led by a jelly belly like J.B. Pritzker, someone who wants to divide, wants to encourage violence and hateful rhetoric against people who associate with the Republican Party. I will never, ever call out a Democrat voter and say, I hate you because you voted that way. No, let's break bread and talk about it. Let's give credit where credit's due, like the comedian Bill Maher, who went to the White House, doesn't agree with President Trump, but Bob Ritchie, otherwise known as the greatest rocker in modern day rock country gospel music, Kid Rock himself, facilitated that meeting because he's friends with Bill, he's friends with the president, and they had a nice, lovely evening. If you watch that playback at all of Bill Maher saying, at least this guy that you sometimes see out there that's tough and who really goes at it with political opponents, he was really gracious. He actually asked me what I thought about issues. And he's not the big scary guy that the left claims he is. And to all the people out there who say, no, I don't want to talk to one another, I don't want you talking together about issues, well, to hell with those folks, because those people have an agenda. They have political talking points, whether it's Republican or Democrat, trying to get reelected by dividing people. It's not about dividing people. It's about calling out woke. It's about calling out the far left, but doing it peacefully and patriotically with optimism. And that's what we seek to do here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. What are your thoughts on this? Please feel free to send a message in, feedback at rsbn.tv, or comment on your favorite social media platform where you might be watching from today, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, or somewhere else, perhaps X, which we know is so much better since Elon Musk took over. How about that Truth Social that's streaming all of the new media that's out there? Thank you for doing that to get the right side of history out there for you, the American people, unbridled access to your government. Thank you to our sponsors at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, angelpaste.com. Experience the miracle today. Whether it's that vitamin B miracle cream, the OG, if you will, that gets rid of your dry skin and eczema. I've tried it here on the network and my skin was literally glowing. You saw how bright and shiny it was, and it got me ready to paint the town red for the weekend. So whether it is dealing with that, or a natural immunity booster with vitamin C, or a natural mosquito repellent. I gotta tell you, one thing that grinds my gears, because I'm all about Maha. When people go to a barbecue in the summer, and I know mosquitoes get nasty, it's all of that, but then they just spray the DEET and all that nasty stuff, the chemicals, all over near the food when you're trying to grill the hot dogs and the sausages. It drives me crazy. And I hate to say it, but kiss the cook. I get a little bit fiery if I'm right next to that fire and I'm making food for my friends and family. I don't want that stuff, the chemicals going on the food, which then cause cancer. So go spray that somewhere else. Well, there's a way to solve that. It's by going to angelpaste.com, getting these great non-GMO, no chemicals in their products. Hey, they're a Christian company as well. They're based out of Spring, Texas, the Lone Star State, just off of the Gulf of America, and a great way to prepare for all of your summer festivities from their extraordinary products for men and women. Go to angelpaste.com. Experience that miracle today. They hire veterans. This is the all-American company. We love them so much, and we're grateful for their sponsorship here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. So we've been covering the latest news from the Trump White House, whether it's those mineral deals that finally were signed by Ukraine, agreed to just last week, President Trump having that meeting with Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine at the Vatican before Pope Francis's funeral. And what a sight that was to see the ornate beauty. If you have not toured St. Peter's Basilica, something extraordinary to see. I stood there once before, right where Charlemagne was knighted as Holy Roman Emperor by the Holy See way back when. And it made me feel very small in the sense of we are just specks on this earth who need to do good and share in building up our civilization. So that was a moment to see where time and eternity, heaven and earth, really come together. A beautiful sight as President Trump seeking to save the countless lives that will be saved from the ending of this conflict. You look at over 1.5 million people have died, civilian or military, from Ukraine and Russia, two great civilizations, both with really bad leaders at the end of the day. And peace is the goal, peace through strength. And the president committing to Ukraine things that will benefit both nations. And the Russia hoax, hopefully that's over with finally. And as President Trump said, it was ridiculous. As bad of a guy as Putin is, that's my words, not President Trump, but as bad as Putin is, he went through a lot with all of that Russia hoax from crooked Hillary Clinton and the far left, who sought to derail President Trump's campaign. They spied on his campaign, a private citizen at the Trump Tower. Who will be held accountable? James Comey, Barack Hussein Obama, Otto Penn, all of those other officials who were in the Oval Office who ordered the Crossfire Hurricane. Let's get to the bottom of that. Come on, House GOP. Come on, Senate. Investigate, and get this done for the American people. No one is above the law, and we'll stay on that for you here on the right side of history. Other things going on today on Capitol Hill. You see that beautiful shot of our legislative building in Washington, D.C., focusing in on the drone threat, the balloons that came over our country thanks to Otto Penn from the Chinese Communist Party. Why were those not shot down? Getting expert testimony on everything happening when it comes to our national security. Something so crucial to do in this day and age. And thank God that President Trump is back in office with the experts in order to keep America safe. And Mr. Director, do we happen to have that feed still going live? And we'll check in on that momentarily for you so that we could see if that is going on. Just curious if that hearing is still happening when it comes to the drones. Oh, yes, and no problem there. We will keep talking about the greatness of the Trump White House. In 100 plus days, how incredible all these successes happening, whether it's the economy, the border, the use of tariffs, all of these countries coming to the table for President Trump when implementing these tariffs. So you have Secretary of State Marco Rubio, 14 different countries in 14 weeks, really exporting the MAGA agenda on a regular basis in order to Get people on the same page, whether it be friend or foe. We will dialogue with all for peace through strength. We are now respected again in the world. We are now feared again in the world, and that's a good thing. Our United Auto Workers, our unions, feel they are part of the mold now. They are part of the fold. The Reagan Democrat now again has a voice. They really did not during Bush 41. Especially during Bill Clinton and George W. Bush's respective tenures, the unions were left out of negotiations. Barack Hussein Obama wanted the photo op, but did he really get anything done for the American worker as factories were being closed throughout the Midwest? And of course, AutoPen was out to lunch, always talking about, I'm Scranton Joe. You know, Ma! I mean, you just hear him screaming on a regular basis with his ridiculous ice cream cone. And I don't like anything when it comes to, class warfare or things of that nature. We have to respect our elders. But we had a cognitive declined, disabled president who was not at the wheel of the ship. It was a sinking ship. And now President Trump reversing that for the better, getting it back with wind and behind our sails, clear view, as we look towards the future in truly a golden era. And I really almost, like he said last night, you envy the youth. And I'm still a young professional, thanks be to God. But President Trump said, oh man, what I'd give for youth again. It's such a good time in your life. And he encouraged those remarkable Gen Z students yesterday at the University of Alabama to keep that momentum going. Don't quit. Use your youth. Use this time to fight for what you believe in, to do what you do well, and then also to let that elevator back down and bring the next generation up, the next mentees who want to help serve, and that no life can really be looked at positively if you don't look back on who you helped get up when they were down. So President Trump, Coach Nick Saban, thank you for the encouraging words. It was great for me to hear, made me reflect on my graduation now roughly 14 years ago and all that has been accomplished since then. So thank you for your words of wisdom and for sharing some insight with us on how to be legendary, because we know at the University of Alabama, it's where legends are made. And they had two legends, not really in the making, but have already made their mark on society, and they continue to serve in such great capacities. We're going to toss it now to a press conference regarding, I believe, some national security issues and some other updates, the latest news from the Trump White House.
Good morning. My name is John Manell. I am the CBP Public Affairs Specialist for the state of Arizona. I'd like to welcome you to the area port of Nogales and the Mariposa Crossing for today's press conference on southbound weapons interdiction. We will have remarks from Director of Field Operations, Guadalupe Ramirez, from Tucson Field Office, the Deputy Special Agent in Charge, Ray Reed, from Homeland Security Investigations, the Special Agent in Charge, Brendan Iber, from Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the Acting U.S. Attorney, Timothy Corcoran. I mispronounced it. Also attending, we have the Acting SAC, Jared Brown, from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Michelle Ward, the Consul General from the Consulate in Nogales, Sonora. Our flow of show is we'll have remarks followed by a Q&A from the podium, and then the principals from HSI, ATF, and CBP will be available for one-on-one interviews. And with that, I'd like to introduce Director of Field Operations, Guadalupe Ramirez.
Thank you. Welcome again. My name is Guadalupe Ramirez, Director of Field Operations for the Tucson Field Office. Welcome to the Port of Nogales. This is the largest and busiest port along the Arizona-Mexico border. As you can tell by all the noise of the trucks and the cars passing by, I apologize for the noise, but it is a busy port. I just want to point out that in addition to our traditional mission, CBP focuses on outbound inspections, and it has a significant increase in the cost of doing business for violent transnational organizations, and will continue to serve as a valuable tool in our efforts for border operations and to keep America safe. Our successful interdictions and seizures play a critical role in protecting America's borders and national security by preventing illegal weapons reaching dangerous criminal networks in Mexico. CBP has the authority for departure control of any person, baggage, vehicle, or material departing the United States, and all are subject to inspection and search by CBP officers to ensure compliance with applicable outbound laws. Such examinations have also stopped child abduction, interdicted criminal fleeing prosecution, interdicted illegal contraband such as controlled substances, precursors, arms, and have recovered myriad of other violations involving currency and stolen vehicles. Through strong collaboration with our key law enforcement agencies such as Homeland Security Investigations, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the Department of Justice, CBP is able to effectively disrupt and dismantle weapons trafficking, which makes America safe. In collaboration with our federal and international partners, we identify new targets and trafficking trends, concealment methods, and encourage robust information sharing and intelligence sharing to drive both U.S. and Mexican enforcement operations on the southwest border. CBP historically has been involved in conducting outbound operations to disrupt the flow of weapons into Mexico and is uniquely postured to navigate the complexity associated with effectively stopping illegal international trafficking of weapons. As evidence, you can see in the displays here today, matter of fact, one of the 50 caliber rifles that is on display today was seized at this port of entry here just recently. We know that transnational criminal cycles sends narcotics north, weapons and money south. By stopping illegal proceeds and weapons trafficking south, we disrupt the cycle. In addition to questioning and physical inspections by skilled and experienced officers, CBP will utilize dual-purpose currency weapon detection canines, as well as non-intrusive technology during outbound operations to stop the trafficking of weapons, ammunition, and currency. We will utilize every tool at our disposal to keep these weapons out of the designated terrorist organizations in Mexico. Together with our partners, we will continue to target and examine high-risk outbound conveyances destined to Mexico. We will increase outbound interdiction focused on weapons and currency. Trafficking of weapons and ammunition intended for terrorism is not just a border violation, it is a direct act of supporting terrorism. That threatens national security and international security. Engaging in weapons trafficking, particularly to support designated foreign terrorist organizations, comes with severe legal consequences, including terrorism-related charges and long sentences and financial penalties. Weapons like the ones on display here today were headed to Mexico for one purpose and one purpose only. That is for deadly terrorist organizations to maintain their territorial control. CBP will continue to use every tool in its arsenal to keep this from happening. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ray Reed. I'm the Deputy Special Agent in charge for Homeland Security Investigations in Arizona. Homeland Security Investigations is the principal investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security, charged with investigating transnational criminal organizations, which we refer to as TCOs. It's well known that these TCOs engage in violence in order to further their illegal enterprises, especially on the southwest border. These TCOs can't continue to push their agendas through without the support of illegal firearms and the procurement of illegal firearms, which are trafficked throughout the United States and throughout the world. HSI specifically focuses on this through our Border Enforcement Security Task Forces, otherwise known as BEST, in collaboration with our CBP, DHS, and DOJ partners represented here today. Through this focused and collaborative approach, HSI utilizes all the resources within the Department of Homeland Security as well as those within DOJ to not only focus on these TCOs, but identify these TCOs which are supplying and furthering the activities of these now recognized and identified foreign terrorist organizations. What you see here are examples of the hard work that's put through not only by HSI agents, but every member that's represented here today. It's an ongoing effort. None of this can be accomplished without the collaborative efforts of everybody here today, support from the public, and also our state and local partners. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brendan Iber. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives here in Phoenix, Arizona. I want to start off by saying ATF's primary mission is to reduce violent crime and combat firearms trafficking by cartels and terrorist organizations. While our mission is clear and concise, it is also immense and dangerous. ATF partners with the U.S. Attorney's Office, Homeland Security Investigations, Customs and Border Protection, and the FBI and other state, county, and local law enforcement partners. We do this to prevent Mexican cartels and terrorist organizations from acquiring illegal firearms whose criminal activities put American lives in danger. Cartels rely on specific firearms to facilitate, expand, and protect their criminal enterprise. Over the past 4 years, cartels have infiltrated the United States through the southern border and are operating within our communities. These cartels have established and expanded their networks throughout the United States to carry out their illicit activities such as fentanyl trafficking, human smuggling. ATF has determined that cartels prefer large caliber and or belt-fed rifles such as the Ohio Ordnance M250 caliber rifle, the Ohio Ordnance M240 7.62 millimeter, the FN M249 5.56 millimeter, and the Barrett M82 50 caliber semi-automatic rifle. These cartels and terrorist organizations are often responsible for the most heinous violent crimes affecting the communities and neighborhoods of the United States. Under President Trump and Attorney General Bondi's leadership, and since January 20th of this year, ATF has prevented nearly 9,700 firearms from falling into the hands of dangerous criminals or terrorists. If you take a look over at the table over here, these are a lot of the firearms that ATF seizes. I'll tell you right now that is a very small representation of what our agents come across almost on a weekly basis. And I'll also say, since the announcement from Attorney General Bondi earlier in the week of the 9,700 firearms, I will tell you here in Arizona alone, that number is now up to 11,000. We talk about partnerships here. Partnerships are so valuable. It's a whole of government approach. We all have to work together. We all have our own expertise to bring these criminals to justice and to face for their crimes. The two partners that we have left out are federal firearms licensees. The vast majority of federal firearms licensees, your legal gun dealers, we work hand in hand with them. ATF educates these federal firearms licensees on identifying straw purchasers and working with them to stop this. I will tell you that they are the first line of defense. When a straw purchaser goes into a federal firearms licensee, they are the first line of defense to stop this from leaving their store. And they do a great job at it. The other partner in there is the citizens of this country, right? We get so much information of great citizens just speaking out, notifying us when suspected criminal activity is happening, and we'll run that down again with all of our partners. The bottom line is this. American citizens aren't used to violence. They really aren't. Nobody wakes up in the morning wanting to feel unsafe in their homes. They don't want to feel unsafe taking their kids to school. They don't want to feel unsafe going to the grocery store to buy a gallon of milk. So I'm telling you right now, and I don't want to speak for my federal partners here and everybody else, but ATF will work day and night, weekends, holidays, whatever it takes to identify these individuals, these organizations, these groups that are responsible for trafficking all these firearms over here. And with that being said, I'll introduce the interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona, Timothy Courchain.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. As Brendan introduced me, I'm Tim Courchain. I am the interim United States Attorney here in Arizona, and I was appointed by Attorney General Bondi in February to fill this position. And it was critical to the Department of Justice to fill this position because the mission here is a no-fail mission. The presence here today is meant to show that we have a unified effort of government to stop weapons trafficking south to Mexico, because that weapons trafficking south to Mexico fuels cartel violence and fuels cartel power, and those cartels are now foreign terrorist organizations. And we have pivoted, and we needed to pivot, to think of those cartels in that manner. Because the violence in Mexico, the violence they introduce into the United States, is abhorrent. There is a cyclical nature to the foreign terrorist organizations' operations, especially in Arizona. They send drugs and people north, and they profit from it. And in return, they get guns and money south. Those guns especially secure the foreign terrorist organizations' power, their money, and their drugs. And here today you see some of the weapons and some of the tools that they use to secure that power. Each of our partners here, whether DHS, DOJ, or any other part of government, is dedicated and committed to, as Brendan said, keeping Americans safe above all other things. That's why we take it so seriously. And to just pull some anecdotes, this isn't just a Nogales problem, this isn't just a Tucson problem, nor is it just a Phoenix problem. This occurs in the District of Arizona, throughout the district, and the District of Arizona is nation leading in how we combat firearms trafficking. Just to give some examples, in recent cases, Brendan's group with the ATF and our AUSAs addressed and charged straw purchasing hundreds of firearms that are making their way south. That's the suppliers in Phoenix. Our Tucson AUSAs, with DHS and DOJ partners, interdicted 3,000 rounds of 50 cal ammunition. And if you look at the 50 cal weapons on that table, you'll see the damage that those rounds can do. And that was just south of Tucson, on its way down to Nogales. And here at the port, our CBP, OFO partners, they are on an operational basis. Every time they do an outbound operation, find and seize guns. They are denying the cartel those weapons and those instruments, and they are protecting people both in Mexico and in the United States. And the third point is that with our law enforcement partners, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Arizona will hold any weapons trafficker, anyone who has a part in this process, accountable and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. There will be no mercy for those charges because the cartels and foreign terrorist organizations have no mercy for others. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now we'll take questions from the media. When I point to you, wait for Edith to get over there with the microphone. Please state your full name and who you're with. Chorus.
Thank you, Commander from News 4 Tucson. When you come across these weapons going south, I would imagine the smuggler isn't the manufacturer of the weapon. What do you do at that point to try and pinpoint where the weapons came from and perhaps the volume of where they might be coming from one or more people?
So when we come across these, there's a number of ways that we identify these straw purchasers. And if we, let's just say we take a load from a traffic stop or from the port or something like that, the first thing that you do is you trace those firearms. Those firearms will then trace you back to the first legal purchaser of those firearms. So from the manufacturer to the distributor down to that individual federal firearms licensee. And at that point in time, we can identify who the original purchaser is. At that point, that's where really the investigation truly gets started. Because just because that gun was purchased in legal commerce doesn't mean the person that purchased it was the one that put it into illegal commerce. So you're doing interviews, you're tracing firearms, you're talking to your FFL partners, you're talking to all of our partners here to see if they have any information to really dial it down. And then once you start getting into the investigation, then you can really start opening it up through a number of ways to figure out how that organization looks. That's interviews, that's data extraction, that is, again, tracing and talking to people out in the community. Then you can really start dialing it down. And then you look at recoveries as well. Has this person had any other recoveries in Mexico, other places, and then who are they tied to as well on these recoveries? And it really just continues to expand. I mean, you'd probably be blown away by how big these organizations can get that are leading a bunch of these straw purchasers, and as it kind of funnels up into getting them out over across the border into Mexico. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Renee Romo. I'm with 13 News in Tucson. I just wanted to kind of ask, hello? Just the different guns on the different tables. Typically, do you find, multiple at one time, or do you find them all together in one bust? How does that usually work? Because obviously I see a variety over here, but some of these over here kind of look the same.
Thanks. Good question. At the ports of entry, it could be either or. We have instances where we'll have maybe one or two weapons to times where you'll have a dozen weapons and including ammunition. So it depends, it just depends on that one interception and also the method of concealment. So in some cases, concealment, when you have 50 caliber ammunition, kind of hard to conceal. But some of these weapons and weapon parts, they'll find the same kind of compartments that are used for narcotics coming into the country. They utilize those same type of compartments for weapons going into Mexico.
Shoot me that question again, if you don't mind. Make sure I can get everything answered here.
No, yes, I just was asking. I mean, obviously I see a variety. Hello? Okay. It's over here, and so I just was wondering if usually you find, a variety of weapons at once, or if you just find a couple with different people.
Yeah, so for us, we interdict as soon as we know we have a straw purchaser, right? And so that straw purchaser, I mean, it depends on what you're paying. I mean, there's $16,000, $20,000, $25,000 in cash that these individuals are going into gun stores and purchasing these things for. Obviously, some of them are pretty heavy, so they're not just walking out carrying them. So really what we do is we interdict as soon as we know a straw purchaser. Sometimes it is just one of your bigger ones, maybe it'll be two or three, and then you get down to the pistols and the handguns and things, and that could be a plethora. It's really how they can carry them out and how they can store them. So, but then you really start looking into how many they've purchased, and as I said before, the investigation goes on and it increases, and yes, thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and respond to that in English for the group here. So, at what point do you become a member of a transnational criminal organization? In order to answer your question, I think it's important to highlight the steps that these TCOs take to recruit and identify individuals to procure these firearms, right? That's a big piece of the story that sometimes gets left out. We see concerted efforts being made through social media recruitment and traditional means to identify these straw purchasers, identify individuals, and exploit the legal systems that are here. So to answer that question, that's where it comes in, right? Is defining at what point was the firearm legally procured and at what point was it transferred illegally. There are consequences for the individuals here if they are found to be supporting a transnational criminal organization. There's a lot of factors that go into how that would become a material support of a foreign terrorist organization. It's a little more complex, right? But What's important here is that these organizations are exploiting lawful purchasers. There are individuals that engage in the procurement of these firearms for illegal means, right? But these organizations will exploit the legal systems that we have here in the United States, and everyone in this room is here is to protect that system and enjoy those freedoms that we all have, you know, as American citizens. Thank you.
Daniel.
Are the consequences raised for the people trying to get across the border with the new declaration of the terrorist organizations for the narco in Mexico? Are the consequences raised because it's not just U.S. citizens that try to get the border?
Absolutely, the consequences are raised, and there is no consideration of difference between whether it's a Mexican citizen supporting the foreign terrorist organizations or whether it's an American citizen who's supporting the foreign terrorist organizations. So, as Ray indicated, there's a lot of factors that go into that charge, but the change here now, especially with this administration, is that nothing is off the table, and with those designations, it has opened up a host of tools, both for law enforcement and for prosecutors, to enhance those penalties. And it doesn't matter if you're a Mexican citizen supporting or a United States citizen supporting the foreign terrorist organizations, the prosecution and consequences will be as harsh as possible.
Hi, I'm Madison Thomas with KGUN 9 out of Tucson. Can you guys talk a little more about the stats regarding the seizures of the weapons and how those numbers increased in the last 100 days since the Trump administration took over?
Yeah. Could you repeat it?
Yeah. Can you talk a little more about the stats regarding the seizures of the weapons? And in the past 100 days since the Trump administration took office, have you seen those numbers increase compared to the last administration?
Look, I don't have the numbers from a prior administration. I did not bring those with me. I will say that we've been given directives under this new administration on how to combat these firearms trafficking organizations. And we work for our boss, right? We work for the President of the United States, Attorney General Bondi, and their direction is to clamp down on the firearms trafficking. And now that they've designated some of these organizations as terrorist organizations, that, again, like the U.S. Attorney here said, opens up a wide range of new charges or added on charges that we can add. So I would say I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we're extremely focused on the firearms trafficking mission and the guns going south to supply these cartels and these transnational organizations of firearms.
Hi, Rafael Romero Ruiz from the Arizona Republic, and I apologize if you already maybe touched on this. I got here a little late, but I'm curious to know the number of charges that have been brought since the new administration came into office, so since January 20th. I guess this is for the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm looking directly at you there. If you can tell me about how many people have been charged since January 20th and potentially, do a comparative to the last year of the previous administration, if possible. But yeah.
I don't have an exact number of charges. It is significant, but I think an important point to talk about when we ask about stats, it's more about impact, because with the policies that came with President Trump and Attorney General Bondi, there has been a significant suppression effort, especially along the border. And so in some of those areas you can look, right? So I'll just use the immigration context as an analogy. The numbers are down 96% along the border, right? So if you're comparing stats from the prior administration to now, well, there's been a sea change in how we enforce and how our opponents operate. But what I will say is the charges have increased in severity, right? And so that's what we're seeing from our office, and that's what we're trying to push in our office, and that's what we're investigating in our office is at another level of severity. So I can't give you an exact number, but I can tell you that the focus is on impact and severity.
Of course.
Thank you. Corey Steinlander from News 4 Tucson again. In the course of your investigations, do you often and in large numbers encounter U.S. military weapons and hardware, which of course would indicate a leak somewhere of the weapons? And if that is happening, what may you be doing with your partners at the DoD to assure that our U.S. weaponry is remaining safe and not in the hands of cartels?
So the easy answer to that question is the U.S. military keeps a pretty tight control over their inventory. I'll tell you, all these firearms here on this table are semi-automatic firearms, right? They're easier to get. They're not controlled under the National Firearms Act, and they are available to citizens. So these are really easy to get. What they do, though, is as soon as they get these south of the border, they basically have factories, they have individuals that are converting these things from semi-automatic to fully automatic. So I will say, just again to answer your question, we don't see a lot of that from the military. U.S. military keeps a pretty tight track on their inventory, and just the availability of these to not have to go through those avenues and other ways from military bases and other things. It's a lot easier for a person that can lawfully purchase a firearm to go in, purchase these things on behalf of the cartels, other organizations, and bring those south, because they can convert them just as easily down there. It's just ease for them.
Sorry, I do believe you're going to end up having to stand up for this next question, but obviously you had mentioned, I'm so sorry, you had mentioned just about how you all work on tracking back where the weapons came from, whether that's by the number on them or interviewing people. So once you are able to track back where they came from, are there charges pressed against, that person or those people that they got the guns from?
Yeah, so like I said, the thing with firearms is they're a little bit different than narcotics, right? Narcotics in and of themselves are illegal. Firearms are not. An American citizen can go out and buy these firearms. So we're trying to find where it went from legal commerce into illegal commerce. Now, if you go into the store and buy them from an FFL and you lie on the form, ATF form 4473, well, that's a start. However, if an individual goes in there and it's their own private collection, and for whatever reason they want to get rid of their private collection and sell them at gun shows or different online gun brokers or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that those individuals are pushing guns to the cartels, right? Sometimes they just don't know. They're just trying to get rid of their own inventory. So that's really the investigation. You got to really dig deep into those investigations and figure out really when was that legal commerce to illegal commerce and who was that individual doing that. Yes, ma'am.
Does anybody else have any more? And with that, that concludes our press conference. Thank you. Like I said, the Director Ramirez, DSAC Reed, and the SAC Kuiper will be available for one-on-ones. Thank you very much.
So an important press conference on illegal weapons and the ATF, also Department of Homeland Security, our Border Patrol, so many countless agents. Thank you for putting yourselves in harm's way, especially getting these foreign terrorist organizations out of the country, whether it's the cartels, MS-13, Tren de Aragua. It's sad that our mainstream press really does not know many things about firearms, but if they would only train and learn about the Second Amendment, perhaps it wouldn't be such a scary topic. But I digress from that as we cover the latest news from the Trump White House. About 10 minutes after 2 o'clock on the East Coast, it's still a good morning to y'all in the West Coast. Hope everyone's having a great start to their Friday, and planning for a wonderful weekend of the Kentucky Derby and also Cinco de Mayo coming up. So please have fun responsibly with friends and family and enjoy what is 100+ days into this new administration, one that is marked by great successes. A minerals deal signed a week into final action after that meeting with President Trump and Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine at the Vatican just last week. You have Mercedes-Benz pledging more and more funds and investments into the United States. That's exciting to see, especially in this region of the country. With Hyundai and Toyota, just weeks ago, President Trump with those executives, also the leaders of the great state of Louisiana, Governor Jeff Landry, House Speaker Mike Johnson, Leader Steve Scalise, all joining President Trump and those executives in the Roosevelt Room in the West Wing to talk about $21 billion of investments, not only plants in Louisiana, but in Savannah, Georgia as well. And President Trump at Rally Day in America with the UAW and automobile workers and manufacturers bringing Detroit back. It's happening in real time. It's time to bankrupt Beijing and rebuild the great Detroit, Michigan, the Wolverine State, playing host to everything with bringing this economy back and all of the successes in 100 short days. Also, thank you to President Trump's staff, the White House as well, for hosting my wonderful colleague Matthew Alvarez just last week to talk to those big administration officials with the new media team going into the Eisenhower building and asking those crucial questions. And of course, once again, congratulations to all of the graduates of 2025, especially at the University of Alabama, where we were just yesterday. President Trump reminding the students to start on day one after leaving the prestigious university, celebrating the Crimson Tide, saying that the people that will be helping lead this great country won't be the Harvard Crimson, but the Alabama Crimson Tide. And then he said, "Did you hear that?" And he pointed to his big, beautiful brain. We know he's an economic genius, someone using his business acumen to save this country. And we stand with you on the right side of history with that beautiful shot of the White House right there, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It sure is looking green and lovely on this beautiful Friday in the United States. Thank you to our sponsors at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, Colonial Metals Group, a crucial group to saving your retirement, because look at what the Chinese Communist Party is doing. They are stockpiling and manipulating not only weapons, but their economic prowess. They're playing war games against Taiwan, one of our biggest leaders in trade, free and fair trade, a great nation of ours, especially in the chip technologies. Scan that QR code now. Shield your savings today. The Chinese are buying up farmland. Why are they continuing to put tariffs on the United States? Thank God that President Trump is there to stand in their way and to renegotiate. Regardless of what happens, you need to protect your 401k, your assets, your IRA, properties as well. Go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. That's freegoldguide.com/RSBN for all of those options that will make a major difference for you and for your loved ones. You can also call today Colonial Metals Group, led by Paul Stone, the great CEO, 800-234-0089, 800-234-0089. Visit freegoldguide.com/RSBN for the chance to receive $7,500 worth in free silver. Metals that have stood the test of time. Colonial Metals Group, thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Now, when you have your finances in order, your health is paramount. And it's sad to live in a day and age where you are prepared to have the medications, but someone else doesn't want you to have those. Not because they're out of stock, but because they're part of the big pharma globalist agenda against the middle class. This is where All Family Pharmacy comes into play. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Crucial, taking care of it on day one for you. You order online, their doctors handle the prescription, and your meds get shipped right to your door, even overnight. 200 essential medications, including ivermectin and other essential meds. Think about this. If your spouse is running a high blood pressure, or your kid has the flu and it's late Sunday night and your pharmacy is closed down the street, what do? You tune into and turn to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Keep your medicine cabinet ready before you're left without options. And get that code RSBN10, 10% off now, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Again, ivermectin, methylene blue, among other essential medications that you might not find anywhere else. Be sure to protect yourself and your family today. And while you're at that, protecting yourself financially and medically, why not make yourself comfortable and get a good night's rest for a great day ahead of you? And that's our friend right there, Mike Lindell, who I got to catch up with this week in Warren, Michigan, as he was on hand. President Trump mentioning that Mike Lindell, the master marketer out there with the Percale bed sheets, closeout sale, all colors, all sizes, $25. Support MyPillow and RSBN. Shop now, mypillow.com/RSBN, and save big league today. That's $25 for these great bed sheets. Nothing better out there. Truly, Mike Lindell, not only a purveyor of free speech, election integrity, but getting you great American-made products right in the great state of Minnesota. Thank you, Mr. Mike Lindell and MyPillow.com for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And think about all the wins this week, whether it is those mineral deals with Ukraine, whether it is President Trump inviting all of those executives to the White House and then sharing with them the Oval Office, all of the investments being brought into the United States, whether it be the automobile industry, to AI, different technologies, even Johnson & Johnson, Chobani, the Greek yogurt group. All of these wins, I'm so tired of winning. Mr. President, thank you. I can't wait for the next 100 days, but I might have to actually go take a nap, which I normally don't do because we are winning so much. The use of the tariffs, especially against the Chinese Communist Party. Winnie the Pooh, Xi Jinping, wants to come to the table. He's called the White House, wanting to renegotiate because he knows his country is in trouble with President Trump at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and that's good for you and for me and for our workers. Thousands of jobs coming back to the United States in our faculties, our facilities, our management plants, micro plants, all different kinds of things coming back to stock up here in the United States, and that's good for the American dollar ultimately. You also have President Trump again at the University of Alabama yesterday, his first commencement speech this year. He'll also be joining the Black Knights, the cadets at West Point in the coming weeks, and up forthcoming for President Trump, the Saudi Arabian and Middle East trip, May 13th through the 16th, to get the Abraham Accords 2.0 in action, peace in the Middle East. He's constantly on the phone with Bibi Netanyahu, the extraordinary prime minister of the state of Israel. So again and again, winning, 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 no backing down. President Trump encouraging those students just yesterday, you're not too young to achieve. Keep going at it. Do not stop. Keep fighting, fighting, fighting. And he said, oh, we know that phrase, I think, from something. I mean, he was a hoot this week, and it was so good to see him again in person, giving rally days in America, whether it be Tuesday or Thursday. So great to be with the President of the United States to cover him as Mr. Matthew Alvarez was at the White House last week. I hope you caught that coverage as well with top administration officials, this new media having unbridled access. Thank you to Caroline Levitt and her team for granting that permission. This is the most transparent administration in history, and it's exciting to be on the right side of history talking about it on a daily basis. You know, just yesterday, I want to thank you again for all of the well wishes, the birthday wishes. It's truly a blessing to be with all y'all here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. I have the best colleagues. It's the most fun. It's actually sometimes hard for me to sleep because work is so much fun, and that is a great blessing. And it's not put past me the fact that I was born on May 1st and that it is the St. Joseph Day of the Worker. The communists tried to make it into a Marxist holiday, but the church responded, doubling down on the dignity of work, whether you are in the blue-collar trades or a white-collar executive, or you're the janitor at the local school down the street or the bus driver who brings those students. Whatever it is that is your vocation, you are doing dignified, godly work. And President Trump mentioned that in the speech yesterday as the students stood at attention, not only for the presentation of the colors, but for the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. They stood at attention during President Trump's speech out of respect for the office of the presidency. It was just like a MAGA rally. It was so much fun. But he said, regardless of the position someone has, you want to go to the person that loves what they do, that has enthusiasm to wake up every day and serve out that God-given purpose. He actually mentioned a couple of different stories of people who were shoe shiners in New York City and other vocational trades that dignified that God-given work and that they loved doing it. They loved helping people to get on and about in their day. And I've had such a privilege, whether it be in broadcast journalism to nonprofit management, sales, communications, and a whole host of other projects I've worked on. As President Trump said, I've had many careers, whether it be entertainment to his real estate prowess, now to serving the country as the 47th Commander-in-Chief. It's a wonderful day that he spoke yesterday on May 1st. So St. Joseph, by the work of your hands and the sweat of your brow, you supported Jesus and Mary and had the Son of God as your fellow worker. Teach us to work as you did with patience and perseverance for God and for those whom God has given us to support. Teach us to see in our fellow workers the Christ who desires to be in them, that we may always be charitable and forbearing towards all who recognize the dignity of work and share in God's own creative activity and in Christ's work of our redemption. So take pride in it. When it is pleasant and productive, remind us to thank God for it. When it is burdensome, remind us to offer it to God in reparation for our sins and the sins of the world. Amen, amen, amen. I wish all y'all just the most wonderful weekend. And I'd like to thank as well, because they were the unsung heroes of yesterday, the beautiful commencement ceremony that took place at the University of Alabama. Their president, Mr. Stuart R. Bell, and the staff and faculty, the deans and provosts, for having the courage to invite President Trump. I know that's not easy in academia, but you are leading, bringing student leaders and the future cultivators into the workforce. I believe that someone there yesterday could be at the highest ranks of government in the near future. And it's because of your inspiration, the way you run the University of Alabama. And thank you to Lucy Bonhouse. She's the Student Government Association president, with a beautiful Pledge of Allegiance, national anthem from Emily Walker, and the invocation by Dr. Wade Larger from that great university, University of Alabama. But as we end our broadcast today, War Eagle, we don't get rid of our loyalty to Auburn University. So the rivalry is back on as we love the latest news from the Trump White House, as we are on the right side of history here at RSBN Live. If there's any breaking news, we'll be with you. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Enjoy the Kentucky Derby. Enjoy Cinco de Mayo responsibly. Have a good time with friends and family. And a cheers to you, whether it be a lovely margarita or perhaps a mint julep. Enjoy the competitions this weekend. And we'll see you, unless there's breaking news, on Monday. For all my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Robert McNeely. Have a wonderful weekend. God bless.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.